Hello, folks. Bill and Brian here with Energy Road. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Nat Gas. Brian, man, what happened? All of a sudden, it's like off to the moon.
Well, for anybody that hasn't paid attention, the last 7 days we've moved from 250 up to 3. And so there's a lot of reasons why. Some of them we're well aware of, some of them are new. So we're going to dive into that, but we are going to bore you with a little commercial right now. So
All right,
that
I still
always
like
gets me
it.
charged up, man.
I still like it.
All right. Well, listen, thank you if you're tuning in live. If you're going to watch this later, that's totally cool. We're going to talk a little bit about natural gas and why we went from 250 to 3. Some people will say it's unexpected. We kind of expected it, partially because of our thesis, but partially because of something new that happened this week.
That's right. Hey,
So
Grant, it's good to see you too, bud.
yeah. Yeah. So we're going to be watching comments. If you have something, if you have questions along the way, drop a comment. We may not be able to type a response. We'll try and type after, but we will try and touch on it and we monitor those as we go. So let's dive into today because today was a very big psychological level. And this is what's underpinning a lot of the momentum to push it up to 3. So Chevron and Woodside, if you look at LNG to Europe, there are 3 main places or sources that Europe gets LNG from. And of course, they need a lot of LNG for their winter demand, and they get it from Australia, Qatar, and the United States. Those are the 3 places that Europe gets supplies from LNG. Australia is a very big portion of that supply. And so today there was a strike that was announced that impacts Chevron and Woodside. Those are operators of some of the largest LNG export facilities out of Australia. So this is incredibly important. And what that did to European prices, if you're not aware, TTF is, what does that stand for, Bill?
It's a time transfer facility in the basically in the Netherlands.
Yep. And that's pretty much the landing spot or kind of the price benchmark for European gas prices. And this scale is this is a chart of TTF prices and historical prices. As you can see, it's a little less liquid than US natural gas. So it does have a little spottiness, but what you can see is this last, let me blow this up a little bit, this last move up. So from yesterday to today, we went from $30 up to 40. So that's a 25% move. At one point, it was over 36% up. And that is for good reason, because if LNG slows to Europe, that is going to impact their storage, which a lot of people have been projecting. And let me just blow this up a little bit. This is on the AGSI, which is the Aggregated Storage Inventory, and it is a published out there, the agsi.gie.eu, and this recaps every country and how much they are full. Pardon me. Sorry about that. A little frog in my throat. This is how much they are percent full, and there are some projections and some people that were forecasting that Europe was going to be full in storage before we exit, before we enter the winter period. Isn't that right, Bill?
Yes, and the the deal is that the percentages are a little misleading because they're not as big as you think. And so if even if their storage is full going into the winter, they really don't have enough gas to last the entire winter. So they have to continue to import gas during the winter.
Yeah, and well, one of the things and one of the reasons Russia has been an important supplier to Europe is that's via pipeline. But now with the Ukraine conflict and a lot of tension, LNG is going to be a much larger piece of the puzzle for Europe. So what we can look at is if we carve out a couple of countries, Spain is already 98% full. And let's see, let's take a look at the Netherlands has about 10% left, Italy about 12%, Germany about 11%, and France has the most storage availability. It's not the largest by capacity, but they have a lot more room to add. So what this did is this TTF ran up in price and pulled Henry Hub up along with it. So what you can see on this price move is that was today. We went from 280 up to 3. We're not going to dive into some of the technicals on the market. If you want to learn more, you can book a meeting. If you want to find out more, let us know, and let us know in the comments. And oh yeah, that was you, Bill. So
Yep.
JKM, JKM is the Japan Korea marker, and that is something that we track on our platform, which it's only $89 a month. $89 a month for over 150 charts, and we update prices on TTF. This is yesterday's price, and it was hovering around 983. I expect this to probably be 12 to 13. This chart is in a price per megawatt. And so there's some conversions that need to happen. But
Right.
we track JKM, Henry Hub, and
So I think the thing to remember is, okay, why are these important? Well, so we export via LNG roughly 12 to 13% of the total production of the U.S. Of that 12 to 13 BCF that we export, 43% of it goes, at least in July, 43% of it went to Europe. In June, it was 52%. So they were basically filling storage. And 36% went to Asia in July. In June, that was only 20%, or yeah. So it's a pretty significant move for Asia. But basically, it just sort of swapped between Asia and Europe. And that sort of gives you an idea that, so when it's all said and done, 3/4 of all of our LNG that we export is going either to Europe or Asia. And so that gives you an idea of why these numbers are important to us, when, especially in relatively to Henry Hub.
yeah. So when TTF goes up, that's going to be super important. And Bill, as you mentioned, LNG exports and Mexico exports are probably close to 20% of our demand mix. Think
I
about
think Brian and I were
percent of
looking
our
at this.
demand mix.
Brian and I were looking at this earlier this week, in that the increase in gas production for the last 6 years, I guess it was, has basically all gone to LNG, because that's when LNG started taking off as an export. The gas increase, it all went to LNG, and so if you look at that, you'll find that is.
Yeah, and Don has a great point here. Don, thanks for watching and thanks for commenting because we do see these comments live. And what Don Culpepper says, actually, I think I can show this. There we
Well,
go.
look at there.
This is cool. We're still learning as we go.
Brian,
Uh,
you're a technology genius.
look at that. But as the volume of LNG increases on the high seas, we're going to see that natural gas is converting from, especially at Henry Hub, from a US only implication on supply and demand to international. So now, as crude has been an international product, LNG is really going to move that way because if we're close to 20% of our demand mix on exports, let's just take a look at this. And
So our balance equations are pretty interesting. In fact, that one of the things that we people don't see coming, I don't think anyway, is the reduction of Canada imports. And that's going to be a reduction based on the fact that they are actually going to eventually get their LNG facility complete. I think it's 2025, and they've
mhm.
already have plans to double it in by
Y-
2027.
yep. Um, and you bet, yeah, you bet, Don. Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is that if you take a look at this, our exports went from 5 BCF a day of our demand mix to close to 20. It's not quite at 20, but if we take a look at what's coming down the way, these are export capacities. These aren't flows. But in the next 24 months, LNG is going to move from 13-ish BCF a day up to over 20. And then if we cast this forward a little bit more, we start to see a stair step up to 21, 22, and then we have some further approvals that could
Yeah,
come on in 2028.
that's
Those
crazy
aren't
too.
all going to, yeah, those are crazy numbers. But think about it this way: we roughly have 100 BCF a day of production, and we have already 20% of our demand mix is exports. That's why when Freeport went down, we had a huge drop. And as these exports and international events happen, such as this, it's going to impact the United States. The United States used to just look at, let's see, where was I? I was here. The United States just used to look at what is our supply, what is our demand, and what is our storage. That's all relevant. We are going to end with some of the storage in a little bit, and but when we take a look at our current mix, you have LNG exports right here. Last week was 12.2. The new numbers will come out tomorrow, and Mexico exports at 6.1. So we're close to 20% of our demand mix, which means we got to pay attention to Mexico and we got to pay attention to Europe. We got to pay attention to Asia. And Bill, what were you saying about Canada?
I said the fact that we are importing from Canada, it's usually anywhere between 3 to 6 BCF a day, depending on what's going on in Canada. That they have a LNG system plant coming online in 2025. That is basically a 2 BCF facility, and that they've already got plans and are semi-approved. I guess I don't know if you ever get real approval in Canada, uh, but for it to expand it to an additional 2 BCF, which means that they're not really increasing their production enough to cover it. So that's going to come right out of the imports to the U.S.
Well, and where that comes in play, this is the history. We've seen roughly a range of 4 BCF to 7 BCF. But I want to point out something. When we take a look at these winter months, we drop significantly. We go from 5 down to 3.9. When Canada is cold, they're going to consume more. And so if they have a base load export of 2 BCF, that's probably going to go to international markets, which, as we covered before, right here, international markets are higher price. Now you still got to cover shipping costs. That's important, but
And that's why that Woodside number is important, because when you start talking about shipping costs and LNG, basically Woodside in Australia sets the marker. It's what it takes from Woodside to Asia is what sets the JKM marker as far as what transport's going to be. It's a
let's
little
see.
different in Europe, but uh, so so it's interesting to see these across the world begin to have influence on what's happening here in the U.S. Now, folks, also we have not said anything about the demand growth in the U.S. I
Yep.
mean, all we've talked about is international stuff. As the demand continues to grow in the US, now all of these things compete with one another. And if you want to know what competition looks like, Brian showed them that Boston area basis number.
Well, that's gotten weak because of winter, but
But
this
still, I mean,
base
it's not nothing.
well, it's not nothing. It has gone negative because it's soft demand time. But during the winter, this Boston area, Tennessee Zone 6 North was over 20 to 30
Yeah,
dollars. That was a basis to Henry Hub. So you had 20 to $30.
and
You
that's when
add
Henry
in
Hub was
Henry
about
Hub.
$6, right?
Yeah, at the time it was. And this came across from Jay. Jay, thanks for watching. And his comment is a great one. And Jay, I hope this is okay. I'll share. The fixed for float has always bothered me for LNG export from the U.S. The fixed is the export because these are utilities that are consuming, and the float is really the rigs required to maintain production. And that is the treadmill that we have a higher demand floor. And Jay, that's why what you're talking about in this mix is super important, because as we're increasing up to 20 to 30% of our demand mix, I don't consider LNG and Mexico exports as demand. It's really displacement, because they have a better, they can capture a better price by doing that. So it is an arbitrage. If Australia produces enough LNG, or Qatar, well, it doesn't. But the fact of the matter is, parts of the world need so much regasification, and parts of the world need so much LNG because they don't have the natural resources. And so that float on a, we'll do another session on this, but let me hop over to the rigs real quick. Let me actually go to this one. And
Brian's favorite subject is always rigs. I have no idea. As far as I know, he's been on a rig one time because I was there with him.
it was twice.
Oh,
Um,
there you go. See, he's a dang expert, ain't he?
yeah. So, but what this means is we have a higher floor. Let's actually take this back in time. This is the US rigs, and all these charts are only $89 a month. You can have access to rigs, supply, demand, exports, everything you're seeing here, and you can interact with these charts, download it as a PNG file, and then you can put in presentations, share. It's got our watermark. There's not copyright issues or that type of thing. But what you can look at is you can look at this history of rigs, and then, of course, we had our COVID drop and we've recovered. But the fact of the matter is, we recovered how high? 776, 780.
Yeah, that
So
was our peak, our recent peak.
780. But when we're talking LNG, we cover oil, we cover natural gas. What we cover in the shale basins is we take a look at the net change. And what this means is our declines that we encounter every single month, and then our added production. And what this means is, if we are above this zero line, we're adding production. What you can see, and this is what we've been projecting, in June, we started declining. this is only going to accelerate. And what this means is these rigs right up here, this is not enough to remain flat. So this level right here, this is not enough. That's not enough rigs for us to remain flat unless we figure out infrastructure problems or reservoir problems, tier one problems. So, so Jay, thank you for passing that along. I hope it's okay that I recap that because I think everybody needs to benefit from that. But where do you think we go from here, Bill? Should we go into storage?
Yeah, let's talk about storage mainly because um, we're seeing very similar uh, path that we're seeing in Europe, and that should be a bear move as we got fuller. But I think the demand we've had in the last couple of weeks has sort of slowed that down. But I think we're going to enter into the storage season with not as high as we had predicted, mainly because of production being down.
Well, there were projections that we were going to fill storage. And what we've been watching is this percent to the 5-year average. We're 12% above. We started the year at the, we ended winter at the 5-year max. So if you can take a look at this, we ended the year at the 5-year max, and then we've slowly been creeping away from that. And at the beginning of the injection season, we were roughly 22% over the 5-year average. We've dropped down to 12. And one thing I want to talk a little bit about is, let's actually look at it real quick.
And by the way, folks, on that 5-year average, we sort of watch it close ourselves because there's a spoiler year in there called 2020, and so we sort of look at that and we try to talk through its mitigating effects. And so, anyway, go ahead, Brian.
Well, I was just going to talk about the U.S. storage injection season, and you can see these are weekly injections. And so I only highlighted the injection season here. And what you can see is that we're increasing. You got to look at this scale, not this scale. This is a dual axis map, but this is our chart. This is where you have your weekly injections. Down here is 20. Down up here is 120. What you can see is during the shoulder months, May and beginning in June, we had quite a bit. This is 2022. We're in this period right now, which is usually very hot, and so we don't have much injections. But look at what happened in September and October. This was when we really added to our production mix. And if we just move this back every year, you'll see this shape every year happening. And this is going to make or break our winter injection season. And we have projections that supply is probably going to drop between now. EIA just released their STEO short-term energy outlook, and I think their year-end exit was for production was 103.6 or 4.4. That is way too optimistic. We actually have our projection a little further south. And if you want to find out, book a meeting with us. There's contact information down below. And our members have an idea of what that projection is. We publish that, and we do talk about our projections of what we're seeing on the energy fundamentals.
And we'll give you a spoiler alert. It's not 104.
No. It's down. So if you want to find out more, book a meeting with us or subscribe to Rogue Edge. It's only $89 a month. But I did want to touch a little bit on regions. East is a big storage region. Look at what's happened. We've separated. Let me actually. So we've gone from pretty close to the 5-year max to this separation, and that's probably going to widen when the storage numbers come out tomorrow, because I think there's like 800,000 offline in the East. Right now, some of it is because of maintenance. And Don, you have a great point here. The cure for low prices is low prices, and conversely, I mean, last year the cure for high prices is high prices, but rig count matters, and I think appreciate you joining and connecting and communicating with us, Don. So, the low prices, that's part of the reason that we were projecting. Let's see. Let's take.
Yeah, that Don Culpepper, he's one of them smart fellas. So if you want to follow smart fellows, you can follow him on LinkedIn.
So when we collapsed to this low down here, there were a lot of projections that we were going to go to 150. We had and conveyed to our members that we had a projection up to $3. I jumped the gun on when, but as you can see, it went up, and it was basically because of Don's point. I mean, this point is right on target. The cure for low prices is low prices. We started dropping rigs, and let's see.
So I think the key is going to be closing above $3, and so that is when we'll know that we've probably got there. We printed above it today. We're back down below 3 again right now, right at this instant. And but once we close above $3, yeah, I think we got a 20-cent rise in a short term. And Brian, then we go start chasing that elusive $4.
Well, yeah, and you'll be surprised on when we project that. So let's see. East is coming off the highs. Midwest is got a healthy balance, but really not oversupplied or undersupplied. Mountain has been doing pretty well. Mountain is so as much as Texas has gotten heat, Mountain has gotten a reprieve, and a lot of that has to do with El Nino. So Pacific, they changed some of the reporting, so the chart looks actually closer to average, but because of the way that they reported it, this is more normal than you would project. But look at the South right here. We went from setting new 5-year max to we've separated significantly from that. So I expect, and that's where a lot of our storage resides.
It is, and I think that also is where a lot of our LNG comes out of as well.
Yeah. So so let's see. Let's recap real quick. So we had what happened today. There was a strike over in Australia, and with Chevron and Woodside, those are two of the largest LNG export operators in Australia. TTF, which is the Title Transfer Facility, or is that what it stands for, Bill?
Yeah, title transfer facility. It's basically the place where they take the title on the North Sea gas.
Yep. And right now we're sitting about 25% over yesterday, up. And so this LNG is really going to impact things. And that's pulled natural gas up. Natural gas has come up, but this move from 250 to 277, that had nothing to do with what happened today. That's because of pure fundamentals on supply, demand, and storage. We're going to start to see storage mitigate down a little bit, and we're going to start to see production come off. If you want to find out and learn a little bit more, reach out to us, book a meeting, or subscribe to Rogue Edge, because we connect with our members all the time. So,
and we will continue to have the discussion about whether or not fundamentals drive technicals or where technicals drive fundamentals. And the answer to that question is going to be answered at another time.
Yes.
Anticipation. What can I help?
Anticipation. Well, it is. So I think that's all we're going to cover today. Is there anything else on your mind, Bill?
No, I just think it's going to be a crucial next 2 weeks on what's going to happen with storage, production, and demand, because I know here in Oklahoma they're forecasting another 100 degrees next week. So I think we still got heat dome hanging over us.
I think based on the weather fundamentals, which thanks to our friends at Prestige Weather and Direct Weather, I think the next couple weeks are going to be pretty warm, but then it's going to moderate. So late August, we're forecasted to potentially have some relief on that heat. But go over to Direct Weather and Prestige Weather. So they're out on YouTube. So look them up. And I think
so.
that's all
I think we can't forget about the little boy that's coming.
Well, the little boy is here.
Yeah, El Nino. So it's going to be interesting. It's supposed to be pretty strong El Nino. And interesting enough, pay attention to what's happening in the Atlantic, because it's heating up as well. So that's going to be it's going to change the weather patterns a little bit for the U.S. Yep. That's all I got, Brian.
Well, listen, thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. And thank you for Don, Brent, Jay. Thank you so much for participating and connecting. Really appreciate your thoughts. I think it adds to the conversation. So we appreciate you. We appreciate you. And
wait,
please, what?
You're missing something.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. So we appreciate you. Please like, repost. It really helps us. Comment. All that stuff helps to kind of get our message out there, because it's important.
And there's something you want us to look at, send us a note.
Yeah. So if you have any curiosity or you want to find out more, links down below. And until next time, we will chat with you then. Surprise at the end?
No surprises, except for it's going to be 95, I think.
95?
That's what we're going to come out of the year with. I think production is going to take a big hit.
Ooh, if you want to find out more, links down below.